So joining me today, my name is Jason Etter. I'm from LTech here. I also have Craig Foote, who will be here as well. He's our technical rock star, as you can see. And also joining us is Gordon Short. He's the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Fujitsu Run My Process. And for any of those interesting questions that are a little outside of what Craig and I can answer, we'll have Gordon here too to jump in and assist us. So just to go through the agenda here, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about LTech, then I'm going to talk about Fujitsu Run My Process. I'm going to talk a little bit about the business problems, some use cases there, go into the demonstrations, and we'll hopefully have a lot of fun understanding this. Okay, so who is LTech? I see a lot of familiar faces or names here. I don't see faces, I see names. That's right, I just remembered, earlier when I was introducing everyone, we also have Taka here, and he's part of Fujitsu Run My Process as well. He's a solution architect, so we actually have two members of the Fujitsu Run My Process team with us, and we're really excited to have them aboard. To jump back into this slide in terms of who is LTech, LTech was founded to provide enterprises with the best-of-breed technology solutions. Since then, we've evolved into a leading cloud service broker. We were an early Google Enterprise partner. We've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of customers benefit from Google Apps and the Google Search appliance, and we've also dived into Amazon Web Services and all kinds of different opportunities that present us. Our experience working with a diverse set of clients from startups to Fortune 500 companies has made us a trusted team in the enterprise class technology. We offer pre-deployment, planning, discovery services, technical setup, configuration, migration, training, change management, communication, and post-production support. Also, of course, we offer application development, architecture, design, analysis, soup to nuts. You know, we really offer, our goal is that if you have an interest in cloud technology, we work with multiple partners and multiple different technologies, and our hope is that we can collide all those together and make them work for you in a customized fashion. Also, please, if you're not already familiar, please go through ltech.com. That's where we have everything there. We have our upcoming webinars. We have our Twitter feed. We have all kinds of different information that's really valuable to you. And it goes through all of our different services, our solutions, products, etc. as well. So do feel free to join our newsletter through our website as well, and I'll be happy to stay in touch with you. So let's talk a little bit about Fujitsu and Fujitsu Run My Process. So they are the world's largest IT service provider, as you can see, with $47 billion in annual sales. Established in 1935. Look, frankly, if you haven't heard of Fujitsu, I would be surprised. They are, a wonderful company to work with, and now that they've paired up with Run My Process, they have even more to offer as well. And Run My Process started in 2007. In 2009, Gartner said they were one of the cool vendors in business process management, which is excellent, and I couldn't agree more. And then just recently, in April 2013, they were acquired by Fujitsu, and that's why we're all talking today. So let's jump into this. Okay, so the business problem that we're all talking about today, right? It used to be that every form of communication required a pair of shoes and a handshake, right? People would meet eye to eye. With virtualization becoming the norm, those days are far gone, and the expectation of workload has shifted dramatically. Many of you have already started to adopt cloud technologies and are using Google to support your email, your calendar communication, and using it as a document store to create spreadsheets. Presentations like this. This is created, as you can see right here. Look at that, docs.google.com, right? We live and breathe in the cloud already, and that's how we manage most of our business communication. But what about those applications that were on, or still maybe are on SharePoint, or you have general workflows? Perhaps you have Lotus Notes applications and other processes that were pre-existing before you started moving into this cloud technology? Well, that's, what we're going to talk about today. With that whole, now that you're using Google Apps, or you might be using Google Apps or any type of cloud technology, the idea is that you have this access anywhere you want, right? People have smartphones, tablets, and that's exactly what people are expecting when they have, the technology in front of them. They want the information, the data in front of them as well. And with that is automation, right? Social media and the smartphone has changed the way we access technology today. 98% of Americans own a mobile device, and 40% of these are smartphones. 95% of Americans use cloud services in their consumer lives, and it's just something that's become a part of us. If I'm not in front of my desktop and I have my iPad in front of me, or maybe I have my S3 in front of me, it doesn't really matter. I still have access to my files. I have access to my mail. I have access to my calendar. I have access to communicate with people, right? That's the big step that's already happened with cloud technology. But what we're here today to talk about is, what about those processes, those workflows? And that's, I think, a really important question to ask, because if you're utilizing these great technologies, why wouldn't you want to adapt those applications, processes, and workflows integrated into that environment? So let's actually get a poll from everyone. So the first question we have is, what type of automation is missing in your Google environment? So you're going to see a poll come up real quick. Let me just minimize this to make sure it comes up. See. There it is. Make sure you answer your question and we'll get started. And let's take a look here at what we have for the results. Okay, so we have, it looks like, interesting. Okay, so what type of automation is missing, right? A lot of people are feeling onboarding and offboarding employees. I could not agree more. We're going to talk about that too. That's great. So let's jump into some of the use cases. Perfect example is the purchase order. Okay, the purchase order is, how many times have you been slowed down because you're waiting for a signature, right? How many times has your sales team lost an opportunity because Larry didn't sign off on Susan's PO, right? How many times you've been so inundated with spreadsheets and physical pieces of paper that are just mounting up on your desk? Well, this plays in perfectly with what Run My Process is, and I just want to feed you these ideas to put them in your minds as you're watching and thinking about this before we actually dive into the demo. So we talked about, integrating with Google Apps. Now we're talking about integrating with different workflows. There are still so many businesses that we work with that are, although they're adapting to the cloud, they have spreadsheets and, physical pieces of paper that they're relying on to move things along. And, if you could automate that, if you could, integrate it with Google Drive and Calendar or Google Sites, those types of things, or maybe you want to connect it to Salesforce, something of that nature. This is exactly where Run My Process comes in. So let's ask another poll question. Do you have a need to replace paper-based processes with something more efficient? And I would be surprised if the results aren't a staggering yes. So let's see here. Okay, let's see what the results are. Yes. A staggering yes. It looks like everyone would like to replace all those paper processes, and as someone who uses Run My Process for some workflows, if not all, I could not agree more. Getting rid of that stack of paper that sits over there, not only is it environmentally friendly, but it's also really helpful in terms of being able to search and taking full advantage of these cloud technologies that you're using. So let's go to the next one, right? So a lot of you already said this is a big one, right? HR recruitment, hiring people is no simple task. Just to search through and scrub through hundreds, if not thousands, of applications or applicants is one thing, right? And that process all to itself could require, a pretty heavy heavily inundated workflow itself. But then once you do hire new members, there's the whole onboarding process itself, right? There's forms that need to be filled out. There's reports that need to be sent. There's, different levels of management need to be informed. There's all kinds of training materials that need to be distributed. Signatures need to be stored. And, there's a lot of T's that have to be crossed and I's that have to be dotted, right? And with Run My Process, their goal is to simplify your HR experience. They want to track your recruiting process from start to finish, convert your candidate files into employment contracts in one click, and access employee information anytime, anywhere from any device, just like you would with all your other information you're already utilizing in Google Apps. So let's jump to another question here. Does your HR department utilize Drive, Mail, and Calendar and Hangouts for interviews? I think that's a great question. Let's see what people have to say with that one. I'm actually curious, really curious to see the answer for this, because I love the idea about using Google, to integrate with the interview process. I work with a lot of different recruiting firms that are using Hangouts. They're using, that type of technology. It looks like more people are not utilizing than they are. It's about 57% of the people here are not utilizing that technology for their HR recruitment, which, that's very common because you don't think about it. You have this technology in front of you and you're using it for your business, but, there's that outside piece of it, So that's something we want to talk about a little bit more here too. So here's the third use case, right? Field services. A lot of you have people that live in their car, or at the very least they spend less time at headquarters than they do in the corporate office, right, or at headquarters. The flexibility, right, needs to be off-site and still able to record pertinent data. So that becomes a challenge. As you can see, our little buddy right here, he's got his diagram and his walkie-talkie, but ideally if he could be similar to our HR person right here, holding that tablet and entering that same information, looking at those diagrams, entering information, process, sending out, hey, here's our status, where we are, that type of information, automatic, recorded, sent back to HQ would be a lot more beneficial. So for my process, they want to implement a continuous and reactive quality control system. They want to lower your failure rate through greater visibility and improve lead processing time in crisis situations as well. Great. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the demonstration. So I want to show you an actual workflow, and I'm going to ask you to use your creativity here. So let me jump into here. There it is. So as you can see, I'm in Google, right? I'm in my Google Apps environment. This is a demo. My name is not Partner, but if you feel like you would like to call me Partner, I welcome that. You can say howdy, Partner, and I will respond. But as you can see here, I'm in Google Sites right now, and all of these different sites are actual, links to workflows. So for example, let's think about the HR example. Let's think about the field operations example. Let's think about the all the people that are still using paperwork instead of actual digital versions of this information. So let's go to this one right here, which is Purchase Requisition Application. I'm going to click on it. It's going to open up the site. So as you can see, this is loading now. Now what is it loading? It is loading all of the different data and information pertinent to all the different purchase requisitions that are out there. And I'm able to search for it however I want. I can get an idea and understanding of how many different requests are out, where the status is too. For example, if I want to say, hey, this one right here, the service manager still needs to approve this, right? If I'm managing this entire workflow, this is very helpful for me from a managerial standpoint, because I can just go click, open up the workflow, see where it is, and get an understanding of why hasn't the service manager approved this yet. This started in August of 2013, and why is this going on? I can automatically figure out what's going on here, contact that person, and get it going. Now let me take a step back and start a new workflow so we can kind of get a better feel for this process. So as you can see right here, I can just click on New Purchase Requisition, and it's going to take me into this platform. Now, the one you just saw already had Service Manager marked in blue. So this right here is, a little guide to show you where you are in this workflow. Now what's nice too is this is completely customizable. So please don't think that this template is the only template available. This is the template that was created for this particular workflow, okay? Additionally, because I'm logged into Google Apps, it recognizes my username and my credentials, and without having to automatically enter it, it automatically just plops that information right in there for me. So if I want to start this process, it's already doing as much information ahead of the time for me as it can. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the drop-down. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to enter this. I'm only going to do it at 90%, and then I'm going to hit enter. Oh, and this is great. So how many times do you guys have, let's say you have virtualized, or you have a digital version of some workflows and things like that, and you still get bad data? Well, this, within Run My Process, you can absolutely customize it that people enter the right data so that, you can't proceed without doing it correctly. This allows me to upload information if I have it already. I don't in this particular case. I want to set a delivery date. Today's the 6th. And man, I'd love for it to be done by the 12th. I don't really have any observations here. I will be the person who will monitor this command for demo purposes only. But what I can do here, now imagine if I'm just filling this out on someone else's behalf, I can absolutely say no and select the right people that would need to do that. Okay? Again, completely customizable. So now I'm going to just click on Send Request, and away it goes. It says that. Now take a look right here. This is critical. So this is where the start of that historical data back in this is tracked. Okay? The second I send out my request, it's being recorded. Every little piece of information that I do to this is automatically timestamped and recorded and accessible, monitorable, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to click OK. Now here's the thing. Let's pretend that I'm taking off my start of the process hat, and now I need to be in a managerial position to take that next step. So I went into Gmail, and in here I received this template here that says, hey, someone I need to perform the validation here. Now this can be completely customizable as well. So you can have your logos in here, you can add different graphics, templates, whatever you'd like, completely customizable. This one's pretty, vanilla, but what I can do is click right here, and it takes me to that workflow that we were just in. And knowing that I'm, knowing it my credentials, let's say that, it's Susan who needs to open it. If Susan opened it, over here would recognize that Susan's in this now, and now she needs to take part of step 2, which is the purchase department. And I'm going through, I'm validating things work, 100%, great, that's excellent. Quote reference, I'll just do ERT 54321, and that's, our very complicated coding system that we have here in process. And then I need to select a supplier. So I'm going to click on Select Supplier, and it's going to take me to everything that we've already had stored here. So I don't have to reference anything. I don't have to look anything up. I just click, I want John Smith to be the supplier, all set, and then boom, it just plops it right in, and then I'll start entering the rest of the data. I'll just say I need, let's see here, I need a new keyboard, mouse, etc. Right? We get the gist here. This is when people would start to enter in what needs to be dated here, and I'll just do computer, and then the price I'll just do 100. And then we'll say 7% tax, and we're good. And I'll do upon receipts, credit card, and I'll do 100 again. Okay, perfect. And then I will click approve. Voila, and so on and so forth. And this continues to go. And so if I go back into here, as you can see, this workflow just continues and continues and continues, right? So this is great, and I'm able to access all this information from this dashboard. I can change it. I'm able to monitor all of this information. Again, this entire dashboard is completely customizable. Now, here's one thing I did not point out yet, though. So let's say that you're in the meeting and you're in charge of this particular PO that's being sent out, and people are asking you, hey, where are we with that certain order? Well, it used to be, I'll go back to my desk and I'll let you know and all that. You could be on your mobile device, whatever it may be, your laptop, and you go into Google Drive and you just click on your respectable folder here, and you're able to see and track all of the forms that are being submitted in Google Drive. Now, this is completely up to you to have it customized this way, but I love this. So I'm an executive. I'm sitting here at the boardroom. Someone's asking me what the status of this purchase order is, and I see everything in front of me right here. I can tell you exactly what's going on. If this is my purchase order for my company, I know how to read and understand what this means and where it is. And if someone has a task that they have to attend to, they can have that too. Immediate, automated, this is exactly what people want, right? You want to be able to access this information anytime, anywhere, any place from any device. And that is exactly the type of technology that Fujitsu Run My Process offers you. Okay? So again, just to take a step back, I showed you this example, and this entire example can be completely customizable, right? Remember that. Remember that, what we're trying to do here is just to give you a glimpse at a dashboard, and think about all the data points that you can have access to. Think about, what environment your workplace has that requires these types of tasks, okay? And then after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Craig, and he is going to actually show you a little bit more. But before we do that, let's do a poll, one more poll, which is what apps do you want to integrate with your business process, right? So maybe it's your CRM, it's your ERP, maybe you have a procurement system, online file storage, HR, applicant tracking, any of those things. All that applies, right? It's all about, what type of processes and workflows do you have in your organization that you would be interested in applying and integrate into your environment. And we'll see what the results are. Most people were looking for online file storage, HR applicant tracking, and procurement. Very interesting. Okay, well, that's great stuff. So I think that all applies. Now, and we'll talk about some great takeaways after we get to the next part, which is the actual demonstration of the portal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this over to Craig, and we'll be set to go. There we go. All yours, Craig.
Thanks, Jason. And let me know if you can't see my screen here, or on behalf of the users, just feel free to intervene if there's any audio issues or video issues.
Looks great.
All right. So this is the Run My Process development environment. And on the left, we have a navigation bar that allows us to jump to some of the various areas in Run My Process. In the middle, here's my home screen. This is the first screen that opens up. And you can see the projects that we have out here in our demo environment. So these are the projects that I have access to. Jason might have some additional projects out here. If you were a super user, let's say that maybe I didn't have access to some of those projects. I've also opened up a few of the various demo assets that we're going to be using today in order to just simplify the experience here. But all those assets can be opened. For example, the demo tab opens. When I click on my demo project, it opens this tab for us that shows us the assets that belong to that project. Just to get started, I want to illustrate one of Jason's earlier points. There are over 1,000 connectors in Run My Process that will help you in integrating with various systems like Google Apps, Salesforce.com, Box.net, Bugzilla, Dropbox, Sugar CRM, and there's a lot of other ones in there. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the connectors area. I already had this opened up here, but I could also access that by clicking on under Libraries on Connectors. And we can just sort of scroll through a list of all the available connectors. So if I scroll down, probably of primary interest, you can see that I've opened up some of the Google Apps connectors just to see all the various functions that are out there out of the box by Run My Process. Run My Process has done most of the hard work for us here, and we can plug in any of these connectors into our processes, set the appropriate variables that will allow us to either read or write from the various systems that are listed out here. So if I wanted a drop down, let's say, powered by a Google spreadsheet and the values within that Google spreadsheet, maybe it's a list of managers that's changing fairly rapidly. So we want to enable our end users to update that list on the fly. They can go into the Google spreadsheet, update their spreadsheet, and a drop-down within Run My Process can load the data from that spreadsheet so you can utilize that data in any form. As Jason showed you as well, he showed you a little bit of integration with Google Drive. We have a lot of customers that are also integrating by writing records to Google spreadsheets, at the end of a process just to track certain statuses and where the process is in the cycle. So I just wanted to take a brief moment here to show the connectors, to illustrate the vast amount of connectors out here. And really, these guys can be integrated pretty easily into any process. So switching gears, I want to take the next 10 minutes or so to go through the development of process in Run My Process. This is by no means going to be an exhaustive demo, as it's really just meant to give you a flavor of how to build some applications in Run My Process. We're actually going to be working through a fairly simple application so that with any luck, everything should be fairly easy to follow here. There are two primary objects in Run My Process that we're going to be concentrating on today. There's the web interface and then the process. So underneath my web interfaces here, you can see some of my demo web interfaces that we've created. And finally, under processes, you can see some of the back-end processes that we've created. A web interface is essentially the GUI or form that the end user is going to interact with. The process is the back-end workflow that links everything together for a given application. Both of these objects work together to deliver the full experience of an application. Without either of these two guys, we are not going to get too far in building a process. There are other important objects such as reports, connectors, composite APIs. These guys are a topic for another webinar. We're not going to focus on those, at least the development of those in today's webinar. But Jason did show you some examples of reports, dashboards, so on and so forth in the end user portion of the demo. So let's start by building a very simple web interface. So I'm going to click on New. Let's go to Web Interface, and we'll give this guy a name. It's 11.6 today. And after I give it a name, I'm going to go ahead and go to my Design tab. Now, there's essentially drop areas that allow me to place given widgets onto the screen. So maybe I want to start with, I don't know, 3 or 4 different widgets here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click plus a couple times to add a few different drop areas to hold my widgets. Now up here on the right, we have essentially a toolbox that allows us to look at all the various widgets that come out of the box for Run My Process. So, these are your drop-down lists, your radio buttons, text and email, date, number inputs, essentially all the types of interfaces that you're used to seeing on a web interface or a form. So I'm going to start here. Let's go ahead and create a text input. So with my drop area selected, I'm going to go ahead and click on text input. We're going to do 2 of these guys. All right. So my first one, I'm going to label this first name. Second one will be last name. And you can see how the label on the left-hand side here updates as I type in the properties area. Okay. Now I'd like two date widgets. So I'm going to click on my calendar icon up here, and I'm going to do from date and through date. So you can imagine that this is an extremely basic vacation request form, or maybe it's a request for approval for new employees, a contractor, let's say, for the days that they're going to be available on site. We'll go ahead and we're going to call this start date and through date. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to add a submit button. So I'll add another drop down, and I'm being pretty basic here just by going down the screen, but we can carve these up into different sections if we want a little more of an advanced interface. We can always remove these as needed. So you do have a lot of power in here. Again, we're trying to stay basic just to show some of the basic concepts in the application. Okay, so we're going to call this button submit. And this button is actually what's going to link to our back-end process. So I've already created a process here for the demo. We'll walk through that in a few minutes. I'm going to choose a process, and I want to choose my demo 1105-2013 process. Okay, so at this point I could go ahead and save my interface. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to an interface that's already been created here, just so we can demo this all the way through. So this interface should be exactly the same, except I added a comments widget as well as a file upload widget, which are these two items right here in the drop area. So let me go ahead and open in test mode just to show you what this looks like. And test mode is sort of nice for developers. I don't have to worry about other users being involved, even though processes are going to be submitted for approval. In test mode, before I push something live, all the emails are coming to me as the developer. So I don't have to worry about firing off inadvertent emails that might get my boss, involved, or Jason involved, or the other users that are going to be in this process. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill this out. Here's my start date. See the little calendar drop down here. Let's say the start date's going to be next Monday through Thursday. We could upload files if we wanted to, add comments, so on and so forth. So once I hit submit here, this is actually going to launch our process. We get a little visual indication of that, and you can see that the action is added to our application history widget. Okay. So I'm just going to open up my other screen here, and I will drag over the email that was sent to me as the approver. So this is a fairly basic email out of the box. We didn't customize this at all, but you can see that we can just click on the link that will open up the next process here. So now, as the approver, we have a secondary screen. The approver in this application, we designed it so that the approver does not have the ability to edit these fields. However, in the real world, maybe you want your different levels of approvals to have edit capabilities. We could easily customize for that. Not a big deal at all. The approver also has an approve and reject button. Well, where did those come from? So let's go back to our web interface. And in our demo application, we have a page 2 called approvers. So when we created this, we added a new screen. I'm not actually going to add a new screen at this point. But if I flip over to the approver screen, you can see that these items, these text items, are grayed out. And if I look at the rules for each of these, so back to our properties screen, over to rules, these widgets are no longer active. So that's what controls whether we can edit those or not. I do want these visible, though, for this case. These type of rules will allow you to hide and deactivate widgets or entire sections of a given web page as you go through the approval process. So as we go click down through these are all deactivated for the widgets that we have. However, these guys are active. So the submit button is no longer active for the approver, but we do have 2 new buttons to accept and reject. And attached to these, excuse me, these accept and reject buttons, we have a variable. So we have a variable called state. If we click the approve button, state is going to be okay. If we click the reject button, the state is going to be rejected. Okay? So let's go back to our form here, and I'm going to approve this. Our request is good, and in a couple seconds here, I get an email telling me, as the originator, congrats, your request has been approved. If we reject, we would get the negative email saying that your request has been rejected. All right, so let's see where all that's controlled. So now I'm going to flip over to the process, and we'll walk over to that fairly quickly. Okay, so this process has two swim lanes. So you can see this everybody lane, we're calling this a swim lane here, and we also have an approvers lane. So the process starts out, everybody in the company can launch this process. As we click the button submit the first time, we go through the launch step, which is a circle here, immediately to the manager approval screen. So let me go ahead and go over to, as I click on manager approval, we have a couple different types of steps that we can integrate with here. We have a manual step, which is simply going to launch a second screen. We can fire off an email for a given step, which we can see for our request rejected and request approved here, that these are email steps. And you can see that some of the other steps are, we can integrate connectors in here, so going back to, integrating with things like Salesforce.com, so on and so forth. We can fire off a script, and we can use sub-processes if needed. So when we look at the manager approval step, we're going to go to basically a web interface. So this is a manual step. So we choose our web interface, select the web interface here, say OK, and then select the desired screen from that web interface. So we might have 3, 4, 5 different screens that in different swim lanes we could display for multiple levels of approval if needed. Okay, so on the manager screen, remember, we had the approve and reject button that were linked up to a variable here called state. So when the manager clicks either accept or reject, there's a decision or a fork in the process here. So this is a split in the process that if the variable is set to reject, if state is set to reject, we're going to follow the reject lane and send off the reject email. OK is default, so as long as they click OK, we're going to go to the email that sends off the congratulations. Looking at these two steps, we have essentially an email, so we're set as an email step. Going into the email, we have control over who it's from, who it's to, the provider. And again, this is very basic, but we can inject variables in here to put in different names, request dates, statuses, dates, anything that's used in your process can be injected into the message. You can also control the formatting down here as well. And you can see that the body for our approved email, congrats, your request has been approved, and the body for the rejected email says, sorry, but your request has been rejected. So finally, we're going to join back up those processes, and we're going to finish our process at the finished item, so our process is then complete. So again, we're just essentially adding steps in here. I'll go through just a very quick example of how some of those steps are added. So I'm going to go back to my demo project and say new process, just to show you a little more from scratch how this is created. Okay, I'm going to go into demo, and the person who's going to launch the role, or the role who's going to be able to launch this, is everybody. Call this CF demo 1106 and create. Okay, so our initial swim lane is everybody. I'm going to add a secondary swim lane by clicking on the plus and approvers. There we go. So now we have 2 swim lanes in our process. And again, these swim lanes control who has access to the individual step. So everybody can launch the application, and only approvers are going to be able to approve a given application. Okay, so we'll select a manual step here. Assign, we're going to give it a name. Select a web interface. Say OK. And our screen is the approver screen. We could choose to notify via email if we want, but I don't want to take up too much time here filling out all the different variables. Let's go ahead and add in a split. We'll add in an email task for success, an email task for failure. We're going to join these back up. So just trying to give you an idea of how all these are created from scratch here. And finally, our ending step. Okay, and I have to join back up my failure process. And there we go. So we already set this to manual. We would go through and set each of these items to email. For our success email and our failure email, we'd have to fill out the from, to, subject fields, so on and so forth. And finally, we would set in our conditions here, which would be our accept and reject. So reject. And then I'll have a default path for accept. So I'll say OK, and that will be default. So you can see that it labels the reject path and the accept path, so then we know how to set our emails. We can go in, set these steps to email, fill out the different providers from, to, steps, messages, so on and so forth, subjects, and then we'd have to do the same thing for our approval email. So reject versus approval on the path, join the path back up, and then it ends. So again, this is a fairly simple example, and this is a bit of a whirlwind tour of the development environment. But you can see, in the matter of about 10 minutes, we were able to rapidly prototype and build a very basic application. The developers can also do things like apply CSS to skin an application. You can use JavaScript or jQuery to add additional logic. For example, there might be a requirement in an application to calculate a value based on other fields. Or you might have to show or hide a section of a form based on certain conditions. All these things are very possible, using JavaScript, in the advanced case, maybe jQuery, but Run My Process is a very, very powerful application that will allow you to pretty much do anything you could ever dream up. So that is the end of the developer portion of the demo. At this point, I'm going to kick it back to Jason for any final thoughts and in Q&A after that.
Excellent. Craig, thank you so much for going through that, and it continues to blow my mind how quickly you can, in just 10 minutes already set up an application. That's great, and I hope that the people attending also are equally as enthused as I am, which is great. We did get a couple of questions. One in particular was regarding the pricing model, right? I think that's a fair question, right? And the way that Fujitsu Run My Process works is they do it very much in the same model as you would with most cloud applications. Is you only pay for how you use and how that works for. There's roughly a minimum monthly payment that is next to nothing, and then from there you only pay for how you use it or when you use it. And we can get into greater detail about that too if you'd like. Also, what I really want to talk about too, though, is the next steps. So hopefully what you've seen, you've enjoyed, and what we'd like to offer to you is a free customized demo of this product. I'd love to get you and Craig on the phone together to review your workflow needs, your processes, applications, whatever it may be. And we'd like to do a customized demo for you to show you what that would look like, just to get a rough idea, to get the ball spinning. And we've done this in the past, and it's been extremely successful. So we'd really like to work with you all in doing that. If you have any questions or you want to see that, you just simply go to ltech.com/runmyprocess. That's going to take you to this site right here. And feel free to just fill out this form right here. Let us know what you want to automate, click submit, and we'll get someone in touch with you right away. Okay? Or, of course, email me directly. I'd be happy to work with you. Just Jetter at ltech.com, and I'll work with you, get you aligned with the right people, put